I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Tonight we're going to start with a look at new images of the proposed interstate bridge between Portland and Vancouver. It's one of the biggest infrastructure undertakings in our region in decades, and we're following along very closely every step of the way. So, it's our big story tonight. The current bridges across the Columbia are pretty hard to miss. Their green columns stretch above the river, spanning the state line between Oregon and Washington. But their days appear numbered. The new bridge project is still in the planning stages, but it is definitely moving forward. Last week we told you about a massive document the team released, several thousand pages long, reviewing all the impacts and benefits of the project. Included in that report are new images to give us a better sense of what this thing's really going to look like if it gets built. Most of the new document uses some of the earlier visuals that we've already seen, but there are several new looks that plop the bridge model into real-world photos for the first time. So that gives us simulated before and after shots. And before we get too far into this tonight, it's worth noting that many of the pictures show two possible versions of the new bridge. And that's because the project team is still trying to get the Coast Guard to sign off on a fixed crossing that does not move instead of a drawbridge that'll go up and down. And no matter which direction the project ultimately takes, the report says over and over and over and over again, the images you're about to see are not final designs. They are very early mock-ups, so try to keep that in mind. All right, let's have a look. This is the full bridge as seen from Hayden Island. The top photo is the current bridge. The middle one is a fixed double-decker design, and the bottom one is the drawbridge option. Again, the new images, the middle and bottom, are photographic simulations to make it seem more real life. Here's the same view, but from the other side of the bridge. Again, we're seeing the old bridge, then the double-decker bridge, and then the drawbridge. In this one, there's a fourth photo with the drawbridge raised. What stands out to me in that photo is just how tall the double-decker fixed bridge design is. It looks like that upper deck is near where the top of the current bridge beams rise into the sky now. All right, here's a look from the Vancouver side, standing to the east of the bridge with the image in the same order as before. We're really curious to see what it would look like from the west side in the middle of the brand new bustling Vancouver waterfront, but conveniently the report does not include that. One of the common criticisms from opponents of the new bridge project is that there's a lack of detailed concept art to fully convey the scale and the size of what they think is a monster. Critics have argued the bridge folks are deliberately holding those detailed images back because, well, they're worried about public opinion turning sour, if in fact it is just a wall of ugly concrete blocking the views from the Vancouver waterfront. Yet to be seen. So it is worth noting that those angles are not in this report. The document does acknowledge that viewers in close proximity, such as the waterfront development and the upper levels of the high-rise buildings of Vancouver, well, you would likely experience moderate to high visual impacts, as they call it, but they don't have the photos to simulate those impacts. There's also mention of mitigation ideas like public open space under the bridge and landscaping or public art on the columns, but again, no photos. There are some photos from downtown Vancouver. This is the current view from 6th Avenue and Columbia Street, with the old bridge tower sticking up, and below it is what a double-decker replacement would look like from that same spot. One interesting note in these images is it's easy to miss is that Hurley Tower on the left, the 6-story office building, one of the newest additions to the Vancouver skyline. According to the project plan, it's also one of the biggest structures on the chopping block if this thing gets built. Looking at the lower photo, sure enough, it's gone. Here's the view from a couple of blocks over, standing by City Hall and looking down Esther Street. The bridge is kind of hidden behind the trees that are on the left, but this helps illustrate just how much taller the double-decker bridge would be. Jumping over to I-5, this is the view from the proposed Evergreen Boulevard light rail station in Vancouver. This would be the new end of the Max Yellow line, running next to or above the freeway until it gets here. The shaded green area in the bottom image is what the project team is calling a community connector. They're proposing a cap over the freeway that would cover that whole area. This next one is almost all computer graphics, but here's the view if you're driving across the new bridge toward Vancouver. Those big gray columns on the bottom are the new lift span towers, if they have to go with the drawbridge design. You can see a simulated Mount St. Helens there in the background. Jumping back to Hayden Island, here's the view on the island looking south toward Portland. The project is not just replacing the main I-5 bridge, it's also replacing the North Portland Harbor Bridge, which carries the freeway to Hayden Island from the Oregon side. That replacement bridge is on the left in the bottom image, with the new bridge on the right to carry light rail to the island. And finally, here's a view from Jansen Beach from the shopping center on Hayden Island. The new bridge would have the freeway elevated, and you can see the light rail line there running on top. Now, I know that was a lot of images, but we're keeping our promise to stay on top of this project as it moves forward, and we thought those real-life images kind of helped hammer home a possible future for the new I-5 bridge. Now, it's your turn. What stood out to you in those images? Is it the height, the design, something else? Let us know, will you? You can email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or give us a call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090.
So I was like, how are we even responsible for that? Again, that's a huge amount of money.
A tree, a property line, and $5,000. Yes, that is a huge amount of money. That's what the root is of a fight between Southwest Portland homeowner and the city of Portland. 8 months ago, Jeremy Peters got a letter from the city claiming he was responsible for removing a tree near his property. The tree in question is on city property, though, and more than 30 feet away from his Southwest Portland home. The tree's roots had started to damage the sidewalk, and under current city code, that means that it's the responsibility of the closest property owner to remove it. The city says that's Jeremy, and it would cost him about $5,000. Over the next several months, Jeremy spent $3,000 removing the damaged sidewalk along with numerous inspections before calling for help.
I don't see how we're responsible, and I don't understand why the city wouldn't step up and just take care of a problem. It's city property that's in between my property and the sidewalk. So the city are the adjacent property owner, not me. I completely understand if I'm responsible for the thing right in front of my house, keeping seats, sidewalks secure, safe, whatever, that's fair. When I hear it back there, it really was ridiculous because that is not, what about the side of the highway? Who's responsible for that sort of stuff? And at that point, we said, forget it, and we called the ombudsman to see what we could figure out because it was getting ridiculous.
Now, the ombudsman office, boy, that's not easy to say. It's part of the city, and it's sort of a referee that handles complaints about the city. The office recently released a report telling the city that they should foot the bill. The report outlines that the city council rejected a proposed amendment to the city code that would have added language outlining the financial responsibility of homeowners. Not only that, but the report also shows the city of Portland paid around $15,000 to remove a tree outside the Portland Art Museum. It was mainly on private property owned by a real estate investment company, except for 6 inches that grew into the public right-of-way. That raised fairness questions. Here's the city's deputy ombudsman.
I find it very concerning that the city has not jumped to take this responsibility. Our office really considers this fundamentally unfair, these two different situations. Yeah, I think it's people's expectations on what they can expect with the city. They want the rules to be written clearly so that they have an understanding of what they're responsible for.
A spokesperson for Portland Parks and Recreation says the tree outside the Portland Art Museum was considered a heritage tree and that the city's responsible for dealing with heritage trees. The City Parks and Rec Department admits the rules around the trees and who's responsible for them kind of complex and maybe confusing. They're hoping to change that. They just got money through a clean energy fund that could speed up that process. In the meantime, that Southwest Portland homeowner is continuing to fight for Portland to pick up the bill.
Come on, I can't get any help, or you can't just do what you need to do, city, but you'll take care of, multi-million-dollar investment properties.
Interesting story. Now let's get to some of your thoughts on our big story from last night, Measure 118. That's a statewide ballot measure in Oregon that we're all going to be voting on in November. If it passes, 118 would send roughly $1,600 to each and every Oregonian every year. It would arrive either as a check or a tax credit, and then that money would come from a change in corporate taxes, increasing the corporate minimum tax by 3% on a company's total sales in Oregon, not their net profit, but on any sales above $25 million. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle and business groups all hate the idea, saying it's going to gut the state budget and raise prices for consumers. The measure has even been called a hot mess. Turns out many of you agree. Catherine wrote to us to say, I oppose it. It's a bad measure. It's socialism. There are people who think they should be able to eat and drink out of the trough of government, thinking it's all free when it isn't. It's a pure lack of understanding of taxation, accounting, and economics in general. It's actually good to see Republicans and Democratic legislators agree on opposing Measure 118.
Nothing in this life is free. You work for what you've got, and to hand out $1,600 arbitrarily to every person is ridiculous.
Thank you for that comment. Eric told us, hi, voting aloud no on this. Absolutely don't trust that they'll work with the legislature to figure out all the side issues and impacts. Those are questions that absolutely need to be answered before a vote on any financial measure. Oregonians in the past have voted and approved way too many financial measures that have a trust us component. And how about this one from Ross? I'm all about getting giant price gouging corporations to pay more of their fair share in taxes, but 118 doesn't seem like the right way to do it. I don't know what is. We did not get very many emails or voicemails in support of Measure 118, but we did get one from a viewer named Amy.
I think that it's going to be really difficult to have Oregonians not support Measure 118. We pay more in taxes in Portland than almost any place else in the country, and we get so little for what we're giving the state that I don't see that threatening us anymore with reduced services is going to be very effective, because I don't feel like we're getting for what we pay for in the first place. So if you have to lose some money from the general fund, that's too bad. I mean, seriously, you get tons of money, you don't spend it wisely, it's wasted all the time. I would rather see it go to Oregonians than to any more government officials.
All right, thanks for your call, Amy. Appreciate your opinion there. We also wanted to answer a question that came in from Ron. He asked, the $1,600 giveaway, who will qualify? Will you have to live in Oregon for a specific period of time? I can see the possibility for mass fraud. Great question. The measure says that in order to be eligible for the rebate, you need to have lived in Oregon for more than 200 days of the year, so around 6.5 months. We'll end on this from Ann, asking a hypothetical question to consider. If this actually comes to pass, is that going to attract too many people to come to live in Oregon? Fair question, Ann. We'll be watching. In the meantime, up next on The Story, it's the end of Banned Books Week, an annual campaign by the American Library Association. So we took ourselves down to Powell's Book here in Portland to see if they've been getting complaints about books for sale. Think you know the answer? You'll find out when The Story returns. Right now in the Tillamook School District, there's a new book ban challenge playing out. It's centered around a book published more than 30 years ago, How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents. It was part of a 10th grade English curriculum until this past summer. According to the Tillamook Headlight Herald newspaper, students and parents started complaining about the sexual content, and a district committee recommended the school board remove it from the curriculum, which they did, though the book is still available in the district's library. But hundreds of people have since shown up at school board meetings and written to the local papers opposing the book's removal, including the author herself, Julia Alvarez. She wrote to the Tillamook Pioneer, "Having come from a dictatorship where books were censored and discussions were discouraged, I know how important it is that we protect not just our homes, communities, and borders, but also our bookshelves." A survey from PEN America, an anti-censorship organization, found that from 2023 to 24, book bans across the country nearly tripled, more than 10,000 titles altogether challenged. This week also marked Banned Book Week, an annual campaign by the American Library Association to raise awareness about censorship. We went down to Powell's Books in Portland today. They've been holding events around banned books all week. A store manager told us they have had customers come to them upset about some of the books that they do carry.
There are a lot of books out there that people disagree with, and we support your right to disagree with the material that's in these books, but it's important that everyone has access to them so they can make those decisions for themselves.
They say it's important to keep the books available for kids, for example, whose schools have banned them, and because data from the American Library Association shows the majority of book challenges are either by or about people of color or LGBTQ people.
We believe that open-mindedness is the most important part of reading, that you should read everything and trust yourself, trust what you're reading and make your own decisions. If you're reading something that you disagree with, you can stop reading it, you can put it down. But when you suppress other people's ability to access that information, that's what's dangerous.
Powell's is holding an event this weekend with an author that teaches people how to fight book bans in their own communities. You can check out their website for details. Tonight, there are a lot of people along the Oregon coast breathing a temporary sigh of relief. The federal government's efforts to get offshore wind up and running have died. That's because it's an auction for wind energy developers that was indefinitely postponed. So I guess died is not the right thing to say, but postponed for sure. The auction was supposed to happen in just a few weeks. The Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, also known as BOEM, had identified 5 developers who were eligible to bid on these areas off the Coos Bay and Brookings. But in the last couple of days, all but one of those developers said, nope, we're out. BOEM says the auction is postponed due to insufficient interest. Yeah, I guess so. Offshore wind energy in Oregon has faced strong opposition for several years. The fishing industry has voiced concerns over their livelihoods. Earlier this month, some coastal tribes sued the feds to stop the auction. And just this morning, Governor Tina Kotek sent a letter asking BOEM to halt the sale and to focus on a roadmap that the state is working on for offshore wind. The auction cancellation is a welcome announcement for a fishing group based in Newport.
This is allowing stakeholders, whether that's wind advocates, fishermen, coastal communities, scientists, to really focus on the roadmap and think about how and if offshore wind will be in our future.
Even though the auction is now postponed, BOEM did not provide any details about when a new auction could happen, but a process that was already several years away is now being pushed even farther out. Coming up next on The Story, we talk a lot about housing on this show, and it's no secret that it's not exactly cheap to rent or buy nowadays. A new study shows that Oregon is home to 4 of the top 20 least affordable small cities in the country. How it's calculated and which Oregon spots made that list when The Story returns. We hear a lot about how expensive it is to live in Portland and the surrounding suburbs, but you know what? Leaving the metro area altogether, not exactly a quick fix. A new study looked at affordability and the crisis that is happening in a lot of smaller cities around the country, and 4 of the least affordable small cities in America are right here in Oregon. The New York Times recently touched on this, and we think it's worth your time. LendingTree looked at cities with a population between 10,000 and 50,000 people. They call them micropolitan areas. They looked at the median income of the area, compared that to the median home price, and which cities had the biggest gaps. Out of the 20 least affordable towns of that size, 4 are right here in Oregon. Hood River is number 7, where the median home value is around $492,000, but the median income is only about $80,000. Astoria is number 10, with homes around $407,000 and a median income of $68,000. Prineville is 16. Homes there are around $368,000. People there are making around $74,000 on average. And Brookings is number 18, with homes priced around $353,000 and incomes around $64,000 annually. As for the state of Washington, the only small city that made that list was Ellensburg at number 8. The vast majority of the most expensive towns are in the West. Only 4 of the top 20 are actually east of the Mississippi River. There's a few factors that go into why a town can get so expensive, according to LendingTree. Being a popular vacation spot is a big one, and not having enough housing supply, that's another one. Sound familiar? If you want to check out which other cities made the list, you can read the article now on the New York Times. It's called "Where Are America's Most Expensive Towns?" They also link to the full LendingTree study if you'd like to take a closer look at that as well. And we checked it. We don't think it's behind a paywall. And before we go tonight, we know we often keep a sharp focus on local and regional issues. And in this region, we know that there are a lot of you who enjoy the outdoors. That's why we thought we would mention that today, President Joe Biden signed a proclamation proclaiming tomorrow as National Hunting and Fishing Day. It says that hunting and fishing are cherished traditions that bring us closer to our nation's natural wonders and embody America's spirit of resourcefulness and adventure. A study that ODFW was involved in back in 2019 showed that hunting, fishing, and wildlife watching activities account for $1.2 billion in spending in Oregon and supported 11,000 jobs in the state. So, to all you hunters and fishers and wildlife watchers out there, Saturday the 28th is your day. I hope you get out and enjoy it. One final thing, thanks so much for all your comments. When we call for comments, I've seen today during the breaks, a lot of you are talking about the bridge in Vancouver, and some of you think it's ugly, some think it should be the drawbridge or not. We love that. Thanks for interacting with us. In the meantime, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching, and remember the story, our collective story, well, that never ends. For those of you watching online, we'll see you again next time, however you find us. For the rest of you watching live, Timbers 360 is coming your way next, and I'll see you right back here on Monday night at 6:30. We'll leave you with a look out the window. This is from the Dalles. Gorgeous sunset.